Recent studies indicate that more than 1.5 million cases of bipolar are treated yearly in Nigeria, a disorder associated with episodes of mood swings ranging from depressive lows to maniac highs. There's so much to learn and relearn. Many thanks for joining us on The Gallery, A Woman's Perspective. I am Shiju Alabi. The conversation starts now. Now, to share her expertise and take us through this bothersome disorder is the vivacious, charismatic, and dynamic psychiatrist and CEO of Empathy Space Consulting Services, Dr. Kafaya Ogunshola. Great to have you on the show. Now, our topic today is bipolar, and I just want us to go straight to the point. How would you define bipolar, and how prevalent is it in Nigeria?
Okay, so bipolar affective disorder, also you can also call it bipolar mood disorder. It's a relatively common and severe emotional disorder or mental disorder, and basically what it does is that it affects the mood of an individual. Let me put it into context. So bipolar means two poles of something. All right. So if you're looking at depression, you can call it a unipolar disorder. But if you're looking at bipolar, it's a bipolar disorder. So it has two poles, where one pole is depression and the other pole is mania. And then interfacing between the two, you can have something that we call hypomania. All right. And then basically, so it's characterized by episodes of profound depression, clinical depression, not just depression, how Nigerians throw depression about. And alternating with with other episodes of mania in the psychiatric history of that individual. So what I'm trying to say is the person at some point in their psychiatric history would have had an episode of depression, which I'm sure would talk about the symptoms later, and then at another point in their episode of the psychiatric history, they have mania or hypomania, all right, and separated by episodes of normal mood. So at some point, this person is the usual person that you know, your usual friend or your sibling or your parent, and then at some point they're so low in a depressive episode, and then they come out of it, and then at another point they can swing into the manic pole, and that one also has its own symptoms. Yes. So how prevalent is it? So we look at it, in a broad manner, because yes, a lot of statistics are being done, a lot of studies are being done in Nigeria as well, but I wouldn't be quoting any direct studies. However, what do we know about emotional disorders or mental disorders? At any particular point in time, about 25% of the population would be going through an emotional illness, so be it bipolar, depression, schizophrenia, or what have you. So we can be saying that 1 in 4 adults or 1 in 4 persons in Nigeria at some point have bipolar or have a lifetime risk of having bipolar. Yeah.
Now, with what you've just described, is it possible that it could be a personality thing? Can we also sometimes mistake it for, somebody's normal, character or behavior?
Yeah, well, it's not likely, because by the time one is conferring a diagnosis of bipolar on an individual, it's been done beyond what can be characterized as normal. All right, so there will be times when we'll be melancholic in our lives. So in the past, we've been these illnesses have been called melancholia or mania. They've been called manic depressive disorders. When you have an individual who maybe they are known to have low periods in their life, but it's not severe enough to affect maybe relationships or to affect their functioning as a wife, as a mother, as an employer, as an employee. That's normal. It hasn't come to clinical attention. But there is no how that, bipolar as the disorder that would maybe at some point the person was in the depressive pool, or another point the person was in the manic pool. It's not possible for you to say, oh, this is this person's personality. By the time it becomes to clinical attention and they are conferring that diagnosis, it becomes an abnormality. It's a disorder that requires attention. It cannot be normalized anymore as just the person's personality traits.
I see. I picked a very good. I picked one word there, And the melancholy thing.
Yes.
We learned something like that in communication studies.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Yes.
That is
so
where it works.
Melancholia. So before the diagnosis evolved to become bipolar affective disorder or bipolar mood, at that point they would just say, "Oh, this person is melancholic." You know, but when it becomes very severe, there can even be severe melancholia. You know, in personality traits, you talk about melancholy, the melancholic, the sanguine, the phlegmatic, but the disorder is much bigger than just what we're talking about when we're talking about just personality traits.
Maybe we move on with symptoms. Let's move on with symptoms.
Yeah.
What are the symptoms? What should people look out for? When should we be concerned?
All right. So, okay, let's look at depression first, because depression is one that is usually overlooked. There's no how you can overlook mania. It's not possible. An individual who the core symptoms that we look at for in depression, we're looking at it affects the mood. So either this person's mood is very persistently low for most times of the day and running into weeks. Okay, normally what people would now would misconstrue as sadness is some people will say, "Oh, I'm sad, it means I'm depressed." No, for sadness there is a reactivity. Something made you sad. And usually, maybe when there's a positive stimuli, you can actually come out of it. So something happens, maybe you see a child, you get a bank alert. Your sadness should react positively.
Particularly bank alerts, we get all up.
Yes.
And excited.
Or in the case of someone who is clinically depressed, and then I like to use that word clinically depressed because it's now bigger than just losing a phone or maybe your laptop was stolen.
Yes.
You know, it's way bigger.
Yes.
And usually these people cannot even explain why they are that sad, the intensity of that sad that is not reactive to positive things around them. So it's persistent, and then there's not affectation of energy levels, which can present as not wanting to get out of bed in the morning, just wanting to remain under the duvets. You're not looking forward to the next day. Some people will even tell you that the dawning of a new day brings them a lot of dread. You know, they're wishing they could just pass on in their sleep. You know, when it becomes complicated by suicidal thoughts or behaviors. There's also loss of interest in things that you would like. So you have someone who is very boisterous, very happy, you know, always the life of a party, and just loses interest in anything that would bring them pleasure. These are the core symptoms of depression. So mood, energy levels, as well as interests or motivation to get things done. You then have accessory symptoms like appetite. So appetite for food or for sex, libido can drop when you're talking about the depressive pole of bipolar. And then you now have loss of confidence, you know, a negative
weight loss.
Exactly, sleep. Yes. So there's an interesting thing about the sleep of depression. We call it early awakening of depression. Remind me when I'm talking about mania, because it's reversed. Okay. You know, so with the early awakening of depression, these individuals usually wake up 2 to 3 hours before their normal wake up time. Some of my clients will say, "Doctor, it's as if by 3 a.m. this spirit wakes me up." It's classical in everybody, you know.
And it's not to pray.
Usually they can't. It's not even about praying. It's more about regret.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So it's not to pray. So there's a lot of regrets, questioning how you lived your life. It's funny how depression would present, and that's why people would now think it's a spiritual thing, because you know the way it presents, it has to do a lot with self-doubt, self-blame, regrets, guilt feelings of maybe it's something I did in the past that is bringing all of this on. So that's the early awakening of depression. Mainly, you wake up 2 to 3 hours before your normal wake up time, and predominantly the cognition is depressive, or the thoughts are very negative towards yourself. And then it can be complicated with suicidal thoughts. All right, but this is just one pole. So in one episode of the illness, this individual is in depressive pole. All right, and then maybe the next time they're going to be having an illness in their psychiatric history, they move to the manic pole. That's why it's bipolar. We're not just
from one point to another.
Exactly. So they can swing into the manic pole. You know, and then what do we have in mania? So everything that is depressed here becomes elevated and in abnormally elevated levels. So here, where the mood is low or irritable, so it can also be quick to anger or not able to, you know, to tolerate interactions and little things that are trivial. So a mother who suddenly just becomes so irritable towards her kids, and they know there's something wrong, you know, I'm so angry at my kids for no reason, I'm just shouting at them, you know, or her libido is down if it is in bipolar. So I'm talking about from a woman's perspective. Or she's eating, or she's not eating, or she's not sleeping. All right,
so it's either you gain weight or you lose weight. Is that possible?
So it could be depending on how people react to their own. So some people it's elevated appetite and they can gain a lot of weight, but some people it is depressed appetite, and then they lose weight. All right. However, the libido is likely to be down in depression. However, in bipolar, it's the other way. So it's everything that is low here becomes high. Energy levels are so high. They're so talkative. They have grand ideas. They can be irritable as well, or they can be very happy. So where the mood is suppressed here and nothing can raise it, here they are so excited, and people are wondering, why is this person so excited? And they have grand ideas. Oh, you know, I'm going to make so much money. Or they're very over familiar. They're talkative, even to strangers. Personal information, they would give it out. Or they're very over generous or overzealous in spending. Give them 100,000 naira now, and they know what they're going to spend it, and they don't know what they use it to do. So do you see how the energy levels are different? They have so many interests. They want to do so many things at once. They have so many ideas, but they cannot put all the ideas together, so they run into trouble. Another thing is the sleep. So they have something we call the decreased need for sleep. On 2 hours of sleep, a manic person would run in 24 hours, and they don't need to sleep. And sleep is like a waste of time for them, because they're on another pace. They're higher. There's this energy, sense of urgency in them. They want to get everything done. The world needs to be moving the way they're moving. You're so slow in their own eyesight. Do you understand? Yes. And then you can also so with mania, there is no how it can be passed off. So with depression, you know, you're watching the person, and until maybe the person attempts suicide, you might just say, oh, they're going through something. But in mania, it's not likely that you're going to wait until the person runs into trouble. You cannot handle the manic energy of a person who is, you know, the motor agitation and the energy and the talkativeness. They're talking so much. They're all over the place. They're trying to arrange everywhere. They're moving. So it's an energy they're talking. In fact, you cannot handle it. So usually
I want a situation where, you know, in some professions, like some of us, we have to be talkative. So I hope people won't mix it all up.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
The pressure of their speech. So we look at the pressure of speech as well. They can be saying maybe 100 words in 1 minute.
1 minute.
It is so pressured, and you're probably not even making so much sense, because they're moving from one topic to another one. So it's a very confusing state. So they usually would get admitted in mania.
Yes. Okay. Now, when researching on this topic, I did find out that medical experts still are concerned about the cause. They say there is really no major cause, but it could be a combination of factors like genetics, like environment, like maybe brain, you know, structure. What does that mean? Can you elaborate on that?
Okay, so as with many of these emotional disorders, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, there are not we talk about genetic influences, so that means there's a tendency to run in families. The funniest thing is when you look at people's psychiatric history or their family history, many people would either deny or downplay such existence. But from the point of view of a professional, by the time we're talking to you and interacting, we might be able to identify maybe somebody somewhere in the family tree, maybe a grandfather or a grandfather's brother somewhere who had it. You know, you might skip one generation and then come another. So they usually family history. It's like you trying to elicit hypertension in the family or diabetes in the family. That's how these disorders are. That's how we try to also elicit these histories, because they have genetic influences. They also have environmental influences, because triggers are things that happen to us in life. It can be childbirth. I mean, we have women who would have a child and then go on to have maybe postpartum bipolar disorder or something. So after delivery, they have depression or mania. Yes. You know, so the different things. It can even be a job, you know, relocation, traveling, leaving the country, and then that can be the life event. So it's environmental, genetic influences, and then so many other and then psychological influences as well in terms of our personality. How do we deal with problems that we're faced with?
When we look at all of this, people wonder, isn't there something that could be done to help people, particularly in this instance? You know, you've been talking about how it affects women and how it can. What are the available treatments? I understand there's a palliative care, there is therapy, there could also be medication.
Yes, so there are lifelong disorders. There are chronic relapsing conditions like hypertension and diabetes. Usually, so if you go to the hospital and then you get a blood pressure reading and they say, oh, you're hypertensive, what that means is you're going to be maintained on medications for a very long time. The same way you're tested for your blood glucose levels and they say, oh, it's elevated more than normal, and then you're conferred with diagnosis of diabetes. What do? You get on medications.
Absolutely.
That's the same thing that happens with clinical depression, with bipolar, with schizophrenia. There are chronic relapsing medical conditions. They're just that they're mental in nature. The other two that I mentioned initially are physical illnesses. So we need to normalize what they are. They are medical conditions. They're not spiritual. It is not because you're not of
hallelujah.
Yeah. Yes, I needed to say that they're not generational disease. Yes, they can be passed down in families because of genetic influences. The same way you can pass down cardiac conditions, diabetes, hypertension, of the of physical conditions. We need to normalize all of that. So yes, there's treatment for them. All right, they're good standard treatment, evidence-based. Same thing we use in Nigeria, same thing we use in the UK, in the US. So yes, there's treatment for it, using mood stabilizers. All right, using antidepressants, and then any other thing that we think we need to use depending on the episode the person is manifesting in.
So it's not a condition that can be cured.
Yeah.
It's just a condition that can be managed.
Yes. So the same way we can't. I do this a lot because I need people to understand that.
Yes.
They're all medical conditions. The same way somebody is not going to, cannot cure hypertension. You can use medications and then keep your blood pressure levels, controlled. It's also, you can also use medications to control your blood sugar levels. The same way you have to be on medications to control the virus HIV in your body. It's the same way we would also use medications to control symptoms of people who have bipolar. No psychiatrist is going to open their mouth. It's unprofessional to say, oh, so I'm going to cure your bipolar. Nah, we would control your symptoms using medications, and you would live, a very a high functioning and productive life.
More to come in a moment. Even though the exact cause remains a mirage, clinical experts suggest that a combination of genetics, environment, altered brain structure, and chemistry may be contributing factors. How can we handle stigmatization? How can family and friends help to ensure that it doesn't become, a stigma?
Yeah, so I get you. So we're going to get there. Bipolar is going to get there. Depression is going to get there. Schizophrenia is going to get there. Okay, I'll take you down memory lane. Many years ago, before sickle cell disorder became something that is widely known now, and then with a lot of awareness, people now know that it is genotype incompatibility that causes sickle cell. Families then were stigmatized for having abiku. Wasn't that what it was?
Yes.
The same way HIV was stigmatized for the longest of time until advances in treatment and research said, oh, you can live a productive and normal life with it. We're going to get there with bipolar. Right now, the only reason why it's still this way, and you would agree with me that information and knowledge about emotional disorders in Nigeria is just beginning to step up. For many years in the past, it was shrouded in a lot of mystery, and because of the way the illnesses present, that's very mysterious. Some of the symptoms are they're very subjective. It's only a professionals that, tell me if someone with mania or bipolar or what gives me, they're just talking about their experiences normally, and I'm already ticking it off as symptoms, and then I can say, oh, this is that. But a lot of people don't know it. People can make a diagnosis of malaria now. Tell them, oh, I have a headache, my mouth is bitter. Somebody say, are you sure it's not malaria? Go and treat. But with bipolar, it's not the same. But with advances, with a lot of awareness, and with a lot of information spreading, as a lot of people are taking, doing on social media, we would get to the point where people are going to own their stories and say, oh, I live with bipolar, I'm taking medications and I'm doing well.
And I think is a very, very vital cue, because your experience, when shared, you can help another soul.
Oh, definitely.
People need to realize that even from the ashes does come goodness.
Definitely. When you share your story, somebody out there says, oh, I'm not alone, so it's not as mysterious as I thought. And the more people talk about it, and the truth is, because of awareness as well, a lot of people are talking about it. Emotional illnesses are gaining the prominence that they need, because have all the physical health in the world and your mental health is not intact, you're not going to amount to anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings me to this one that is quite common. Before I would ask, where or at what point do you advise certain treatments? At what level? How do you differentiate who needs therapy, who needs hospitalization, who needs medication? I want you to tell us, what's the difference between bipolar disorder and schizophrenia?
So they're not the same, because schizophrenia is a psychotic disorder, which is even actually more severe than bipolar, and portends a worse prognosis depending on how, if it's not properly managed. But you see, the thing with bipolar is can be also can be very disruptive in an individual's life if it's not properly managed. So swinging between depression and the mania, it can take, and emotional illnesses last for longer. It's not like malaria 3 days or you have an infection 7 days. These ones can, so an untreated episode of bipolar, the individual can go 3 to 6 months. They can be swinging in and out of it. That's a large chunk of somebody's life or a year.
Yes.
For clinical depression, some people can be in clinical depression for close to 18 months.
Ooh.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
So the moment one begins to feel like, oh, I'm not feeling like myself, I'm feeling out of sorts, some things have changed, my appetite is down, I'm not thinking the way I should be thinking, please go and get
help.
Yes, get a diagnosis. Or speak to a professional, let them confer the diagnosis, and then they can now say, oh, you will do well with therapy. Particularly for depression, you can do well with therapy, mild, moderate cases. But by the time it becomes severe depression, it has to be a combination of therapy and medications. All right. For bipolar, because of mania, I said mania is very, it's loud. It's very huge. A manic person comes into this place and the manic energy, they can scatter this whole place.
Scatter the whole place.
And then they're talking so fast, you can't even understand what they're saying. They can get aggressive, they can attack you and all of that. So you want to get, for mania, 1 week the person has to be inside in the hospital, and we need to bring down that manic agitation immediately. So it's not the one that you can be saying, oh yeah, let's allow him to sleep it off. Nah, you don't want to do that. So get them into the hospital immediately so that the experts take over. And in no time, your person is back to who they are. People need to understand where they are. They're just disruptions in the mental state of the individual, and they can get back to who they used to be.
Okay, going back to bipolar now. Now, is there, how, because it's the woman's show, and the postnatal depression, how does that work? Is it another angle of this, or that one stands on its own?
So it can be bipolar that happens after childbirth. The same way depression can happen after childbirth, or a woman can have anxiety after childbirth. All right. So the different ways we'll look at it, but the most important thing is that the symptoms we present as in the way of bipolar, then we know that, oh, this is like an affective disorder following childbirth, and then we would then depend on the phase the person is presenting in, because if it's bipolar, usually people would either present in the depressive phase or in the manic phase. Sometimes it's a mixed picture. It's funny, but a critical eye of an expert would be able to bring it out and say, oh, this is what it is, and then we can do the medications as it needs to be done.
Before we go, we cannot but ask you this. You are the brainchild of, the brain behind Empathy Space consultancy. Now, how would you rate mental health in Nigeria, and how has that affected the many cases in your profile that you've had to deal with? Because I read up on you, in particularly in this year, which is the COVID-19 time
period.
Yes.
So it's
mental health cases.
Yes. So yes, we've had an increase. There's been an increase in reportage of emotional illnesses. It might not necessarily be because more people are having it, but I think awareness, I would continue to say that it's like right now people are talking more about mental health. Organizations are paying attention to mental health. So a lot of people now know, so some of these symptoms that this person talked about, it seems like what I've been having. So yes, we've had more cases reach out for help, and I'm sure even the hospitals, the psychiatric facilities and Department of Psychiatry here in Lagos and other places will also report that a lot of people are coming to ask for help. Emotional illnesses are, for as long as you're adult, you're human, you have a brain, you're vulnerable to it. Some people also think that maybe because you're a woman, you're more at risk of having emotional illnesses. Is not true. Yes, there are some illnesses that are more common in women, anxiety and depression, because of our own makeup. We are more emotional and things, and we experience a lot of life events that can predispose us to that: menstruation, childbirth, marital difficulties, and so many other things. And then even the society is more, how will I say, suppressive of women. So all of these things can affect women and predispose us. The men also have their own. Suicide, for instance, is higher in males, so that's one thing we should know. Women are more likely to ask for help. Men are more likely to continue to deny that they're going through a rough patch, manage it with alcohol, and then at the point where a man is coming out, they're almost suicidal. So men are more likely to even take their own lives by suicide. Women are more likely to attempt it or ask for help.
Awesome. I have learned a lot today, and I hope the men and women watching have learned as well.
Yeah.
It's been a great pleasure
Thank you so
having
much for
you join
me.
us on the show, Dr. Kafayat Ogunsola.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on the show.
Thank you.
A good rule of thumb in the workplace should be part of your daily routine. Let's find out what that is.
Shola Shobowale, born 26 December 1963, is a Nigerian film actress, screenwriter, director, and producer. She had her big break in 2001 in the premiere of Nigeria's popular television drama series Super Story, O Father, O Daughter. Before shooting into stardom, Shobowale had roles in The Village Headmaster, Mirror in the Sun, and in the Yoruba film Asewo to Remeka. She joined acting through numerous roles in movies produced by Awada Keri Keri Group under the leadership of Adebayo Salami. Over the years, she had scripted, co-scripted, directed, and produced several Nigerian films. In 2019, she received the Africa Movie Academy Awards for Best Actress in a leading role for a role in 2018 Nigerian film King of Boys.
What's making the trends in the world of fashion? Check out Trends. We've come to the end of the show. Hope you have been inspired and enlightened. Let's make it a date, same time next week. I am Shiju Alabi. Bye for now.